Hello, heathens. Today we are going to talk about a bit of a controversial celebration. Not in the way controversial that there is any ill intent or blood sacrifice or any sort of things, but scientifically speaking, there is no real evidence to celebrate this festival. Or is there? So if I have you intrigued, I think we should talk about that, shall we? Let's start with the time. Well, today is the 20th of March, and tomorrow is the 21st of March, and that means when I'm talking to you right now, it's basically the equinox. So the time when day and night here in Europe has the same length. And after that, the summertime begins and the days are getting longer again, and that means there must be a pagan celebration hidden behind that, right? You know, I'm talking about Ostara or Eostra here, the ancient origin of Easter, the goddess of spring that is related to bunnies and coloring eggs as a symbol for the womb of the mother. But is that really the case? Because the scriptures are non-existing about this. Well, it's not true. There is one, and another one that relates to the oldest source. So I think let's not beat around the bushes here and dive headfirst into it. Let's start with the name. The names Istre from Old English and Ostara from Old High German both come from the same ancient word. They trace back to Proto-Germanic from a word that meant something like dawn or glowing light. In this Proto-Germanic word, and this Proto-Germanic word derives itself from Proto-Indo-European, which had a word for dawn or red glow of early morning. And of course, the English word east also comes from this ancient root, meaning, of course, the direction where the sun rises. Let's first start with the later source that relates to the ancient source, and we find our good friend here, Jacob Grimm. We heard about him in the previous episodes, and he's one of the first scholars that tackled folklore in a religious or pagan context or perspective. In 1835, he published the book German Mythology, and in that book he tried to reconstruct a potential continental Germanic goddess. For context here, similar to the Perchta, we talked about that goddess or that being in an episode before Christmas last year. So this goddess name would have been preserved in Old High German name of Easter, namely Ostara. We read from the German Mythology from Jacob Grimm. We Germans to this day call April Ostermonat, and Ostermanoth is found as early as in Eginhard. A bit of context here again. Eginhard was a Frankish scholar from the 8th century and a servant of Charlemagne, and he wrote the book Vita Caroli Magni, so the biography of Charlemagne. We continue. The great Christian festival, which usually falls in April or the end of March, like this year, bears in the oldest of remains the name Ostara. It is mostly found in the plural because 2 days were kept at Easter, and this Ostara, like the Anglo-Saxon Istre, must in heathen religion have denoted a higher being, whose worship was so firmly rooted that the Christian teachers tolerated the name and applied it to one of their own grandest anniversaries. So he's suggested here that in the name of Eastern, or Ostern in German, we still find the name of this ancient goddess. We read further into the second volume of German Mythology of Jacob Grimm, because he adds something here to Ostara. But if we omit goddesses, then in addition to Nertus, Ostara has the strongest claim to consideration. To what we said in the last volume, I can add some significant facts. The heathen Easter had much in common with May feasts and the reception of spring, particularly in the matter of bonfires. Then through long ages, there seems to have lingered among the people Easter games so-called, which the church itself had to tolerate. I allude especially to the custom of Easter eggs and to the Easter tale which preachers told from the pulpit of the people's amusement, connecting it with Christian reminiscences. So there was no doubt for him that there must have been the goddess Ostara, and he paints a picture that we have thoroughly discussed about other goddesses that are still associated with Christian celebrations like Christmas and Samhain. But Jacob Grimm is a bit of a black sheep in the scientific community, and his literature was painted as folklore until the late 20th century. But now let's focus on the first source that talked about Ostara, and that was actually a Christian monk from the 8th century. The first one who wrote about Ostara that we know about is Beda Venerabilis. I will just call him Beda because the name is a real tongue twister. In the 8th century work, the Temporum Ratione, the reckoning of time, Beda writes about Eosturmonas, the month of the goddess Eostre. We read, Eosturmonath has a name which is now translated to Paschal month or Pascha month. So in Christian beliefs, Pascha or Paschal is the normal translation. I think just in Central Europe we kept this Easter Ostara root in the word, but all other countries we have this Pascha month, and which was once called after a goddess of their named Eostre, in whose honor feasts were celebrated in that month. And they designed that Paschal season by her name, calling the joys of the new rite by the time-honored name of the old observance. In this text from Beda, and this text from Beda is scientifically highly suspicious, because a lot of authors and scientists disregarded this text and think that Beda invented this goddess, a dea ex machina, so a man-made goddess. But of course, as it is the case with any subject, you have two sides you could take, and scholars and scientists love to take sides. And it's the same case with this text of Beda Venerabilis. Let's read a bit into this discourse between two of them, the latest experts in this field, namely Philip A. Shaw and Richard Sermon. So what do these two gentlemen say about the latest discoveries to the connection from Easter to Ostara? Philip A. Shaw discussed the debate over the existence of the goddess Eostre, mentioned by the historian Beda, as we just read. Shaw highlighted that a significant piece of evidence was overlooked until its discovery in 1958. More than 150 inscriptions dedicated to the Matronae Austrianae from around 150 to 250 AD found near Marken, Harov, a small town in west of Germany. These inscriptions suggested a connection to Eostre. Shaw argued that Eostre's name indicated her importance was more about her connection to her followers rather than her to where am I? Eostre's name indicated her importance was more about her connection to her followers rather than her specific role or function. And in 2022, so quite recently, Richard Sermon challenged Shaw's view in a paper arguing against that idea, that Eostre was merely a local goddess. Sermon emphasized that the association of Ostara with the dawn, for context that's very similar to what Jacob Grimm wrote, is a crucial aspect of understanding her, disagreeing with Shaw's dismissal of this connection. Now we read from Richard Sermon. Nevertheless, my main objection is that Shaw fails to offer any explanation as to why this local group-specific goddess would have been celebrated at that particular time of year. As we read in the ancient text, she was associated with that certain month, namely Eostre month. Shaw saw no reason to doubt Beda's claim that Eostermonath was named after the goddess Eostre, and finds it hard to believe that Beda would have invented such an explanation given his reputation as a careful researcher. Yet he ignores the one piece of evidence Beda provides about her cult, the naming of her month and celebrations. If we accept that the month name combines two elements, meaning east or eastern and month, then the appearance of the equinoctial sunrise and its nearest full moon rise in their most easterly position of the horizon provide a logical explanation for both the timing and etymology of Eostermonath, Thus, Shaw's theory cannot be said to have done away with any arguments connecting Eostre, the goddess, Beda tells us, was worshipped in that month, with the dawn or the spring. So, I have to read out a lot now, and we're falling in quite a rabbit hole there. In the early 20th century, a lot of scholars argued heavily against the existence of a goddess named Ostara or Eostre. But the discussion is still ongoing, as we see. The latest papers were published 2022, and the tone of the discussion changed in that time a bit. Furthermore, we read that the two latest experts on that field are not arguing anymore about the existence of the goddess, but about the time and the significance of it in connection with Ostara. To make it clear here again, because I've read a lot of texts on website that still reflect the positions of the 20th century scholars, the existence of the goddess Ostara isn't argued anymore. Science has progressed heavily in that regard. Now, let's draw a bit of a line here. I think it's important. I wished to put this conclusion at the end of the episode, but I've researched for this episode for 3 weeks now. So I was a bit shocked because most websites still disregarding the existing evidence for Ostara, and still, as I said, reflect the old beliefs that this goddess wasn't a real thing. And that's why I need to have this conclusion here now for you. So let's draw a line here and recap for a moment. It's great to hear that this goddess and the festival that surrounds her had a bit of reckoning in the last years. But I need to make something perfectly clear here. This podcast is not a scientific one. Don't get me wrong, it's great to add science in these topics because in this modern world, science is often the foundation of faith. And a lot of people believe in science, but belief is unnecessary in science. Science doesn't need belief, doesn't need faith. It works without it, and that's the great thing about it. But science changes every time there is better evidence. So don't put your faith into science, put it where it is actually needed. Put it somewhere where it is needed, and that is maybe in yourself. What do I mean by that? This is a podcast of faith. I'm a modern practicing neo-heathen, so the science doesn't really matter to me. As I said before, it's great to hear that the views have changed in science, but would have I stopped celebrating this festival if the views hadn't changed? No, of course not. I didn't know about these papers before researching for this episode, and I celebrated Ostara for the last 5 years. Because this is my faith. This is the name that I have chosen to give the power of nature that let the trees grow and the flowers bloom. I could have given it any other name. There are a lot of cultures that celebrate the beginning of spring. And we talk about that in the next part. So I invite you to find your faith, to find your rock in these storm-tossed waters that we call the modern world. Find something that you can hold on when the times are rough, and try to develop this faith one step at a time. When the science or the views of people that you highly regard commands it. Faith, just like science, can develop, and it's a journey that helps you to stay sane. And to get this metaphorical ship sailing again, let us look into other cultures that celebrate the beginning of spring. Let us start with the Nordic counterpart of Ostara, when you will. These are called Varblot and Sigrblot. These are two Norse holidays celebrated around the same time, with different focuses. Sigrblot, based on the Yngling saga, is a victory sacrifice to Odin, celebrating the defeat of the frost giants and therefore the winter, marking the beginning of summer and seeking success in voyages and conquest. Varblot is a modern edition, is known as the spring sacrifice, and celebrates the spring equinox and the transition to summer. It has a broader, more agricultural focus, reflecting on the years upcoming growth and fertility. These holidays are traditionally celebrated in mid-April, according to the Old Norse calendar. Modern celebrations might align with the Gregorian calendar, placing the events around the spring equinox, but authentic timing would place them in mid-April between the historical dates for midwinter and Midsommar. The Sigrblot appears in Norse literature, as I said, and is specific to Norse culture, with no similar festivals in continental or Anglo-Saxon traditions. Today it's celebrated by Norse pagan groups, especially in Scandinavia and Iceland, and as well by individuals that are kindreds worldwide, sometimes including the modern Valblot or Ostara celebrations. The celebrations can vary, focusing on different deities depending on the festival's theme. Warrior gods for Sigrblot and fertility gods for Valblot. So war gods would be Odin, Tyr, sometimes Thor, and fertility gods would be, of course, Freya, Freyr, Idun, maybe. Despite the modern nature of Valblot and the shifting in lifestyles away from warrior and agricultural societies, these holidays offer a time to celebrate new beginnings, success in upcoming endeavors, and a shift towards the lighter half of the year. Summer is coming. Next one is Anthesteria. Was an ancient heathen festival in honor of Dionysus, the god of wine, celebrated for 3 days in late winter or early spring. It marked the start of spring and the maturation of wine from the last harvest. The festival consisted of 3 distinct days of celebration. The first one is called Pithoegia, the jar opening. The first day involved the opening of new wine casks from which libations were offered to Dionysus. Koes, the wine jugs. The second day featured widespread revelry, including wine drinking contests open to all, including slaves and children. Crazy. Meanwhile, the state conducted a secret marriage ceremony between Dionysus and the wife of the king Archon in a sanctuary of Dionysus in the Lenaeum. This day also held the belief that the souls of the dead roamed the earth, leading people to use protective measures such as chewing whitethorn leaves and smearing doors with tar. Next one would be the Kytroi, just called pots. The first day was a festival for the dead and where pots of seeds or bran were offered to them. The most detailed account of the festivals is in Apollodorus' speech against Neaera, though it still leaves out many specifics of the celebration. The next one would be Kybele, or Kybele. For the next part, let's pull something cheeky here, because there was a Mediterranean goddess that was adapted in many, many cultures, and it's hard to trace which was the first. So let's talk about it in a broader way. This narrative delves into the widespread culture of fertility gods, or goddesses, revered across the Mediterranean under various names, and her consort, a young vegetation god, who undergoes a cycle of death and rebirth each year. This tale spans cultures from Babylonia and Syria, where the goddesses is known as Ishtar or Astarte, and her consort Tammuz through Asia Minor. Greece and Italy with Kybele or Magna Mater and Attis, so his male consort would be Attis here, and to the Greek and Italian Aphrodite and Adonis. Despite the different names, the essence of the goddesses and the consort remains constant across these traditions. Central to the cult of Kybele, depicted with a crown of towers, riding a chariot drawn by lions, embodying fertility, protection, and wilderness, her followers created an immersive experience with music, drums, flutes, and cymbals, enhancing the cult's rituals through emotional engagement. The myth at the heart of this cult involves a passionate relationship between the goddess and her lover, ending in tragedy with the lover's self-inflicted death, only for him to return each spring, symbolizing the rebirth of vegetation. This narrative varies slightly in different cultures. For example, in Ovid's Greco-Roman adaptation, the return is symbolized by the blooming of flowers. The worship rituals are intensely vivid, marked by processions, ecstatic dancing, and ceremonies at Cybele's temple, culminating in orgiastic rites aimed at boosting human fertility. The Galli priests, embodying the goddess through self-castration and cross-dressing, play a significant role in these ceremonies. Another profound ritual involves the Taurobolium, a bull sacrifice, where initiates are bathed in the bull's blood, symbolizing rebirth and the attainment of divine life. Despite its foreign origins, the cult of Cybele found a strong foothold in the Hellenistic and Roman societies, offering a sense of belonging and salvation. Its emotionally ecstatic nature made it significant, lasting religious movement enduring well into the Roman Empire's last periods. And the last one I want to talk about is the Nertus cult. In the context of Ostara, this name, Nertus, came up quite a lot, and I tried to give you a quick summary, but to give you a full overview, I will need to make some more research because Nertus is a goddess that is enshrouded in mysticism and legend, and she's probably the oldest goddess of Central Europe. The first one who wrote about her was the Roman historian Tacitus, and he details the worship of Nertus, a Germanic goddess, in the work Germania. He highlights a ceremonial wagon procession and an unnamed island where Nertus' cart, only touchable by priests draped in white, signifies her presence and initiates a period of peace and festivity, forbidding war and locking away iron objects. This celebration concludes with the cart returning to the temple and a ritual cleansing in a secluded lake, following by the drowning of the slaves involved. Scholars have connected Tacitus' account to archaeological findings such as the Dagebjergwagen in Denmark and the Oseberg ship burial wagon in Norway, tracing the worship of Nertus from the Germanic Iron Age to the Viking Age. Nertus' name is linked etymologically to Njord, a male deity in Old Norse, as I think most of you know, associated with wagons and water, suggesting a transformation of the deity's gender over time. This connection extends to the Vanir family of gods, including Freyja and Freyr. Njord is actually the father of them, with narratives of wagon processions akin to Nertus, because Freyja is also pulled by a sled or a wagon, but by her cats. Actually pretty similar to one of the accounts of the Cybele cult, where she was pulled, where the wagon was pulled by lions, cats, pretty similar. Yeah, where was I? The discussion among scholars also covers the potential location of the procession, mainly in Denmark, and debates on Tacitus' sources, the transition from Nertus to Njord, and the mystery around Njord's sister wife. Despite, the idea is behind that a lot of Vanir gods actually have a male or female counterpart, like Frey and Freyr. Maybe Njord and Nertus were also this double pairing. Right. Where was I? The figure of Nertus has from Nertus to Njord and the mystery around Njord's sister wife. Right. Despite its historical roots, the figure of Nertus has influenced pop culture, including the now questions manuscript reading of Hertha in Germany. So it's famous scripture here in Germany. And I think we conclude it here with the different fertility and spring celebrations around broader Europe. Right, so let's talk about rituals here. what can you do to celebrate Ostara? First and foremost, we talk about colors that are associated with the time, and these are green, blue, and red. And for foods, of course, the Easter egg, is synonymous. Honey, sprouted greens, baked goods, and asparagus. We Germans love our asparagus. And then, of course, symbols is the rabbit, egg, eggs, spring flowers, lamp, clovers, and baskets. And flowers, like to decorate your altar with, are clovers, daffodils, crocus, and tulips, like the things that are sprouting right now. And for to talk about real rituals here. So the first one is, of course, making an altar, and that altar can be at your home, normally in the biggest room that you have, or you just go out in the forest or in the fields and build a little altar for giving thanks, for leaving gifts behind and your wishes behind, so that the goddess that you're associated with, or the universe, can take care of them with them, and you don't have this burden of this wish anymore. Because wishes are a bit like butterflies. If you just let them go, they will come back one day. And another ritual, of course, every time when we talk about spring celebrations, of course, cleaning and cleansing, like your house and yourself, of course, like with sage and drums and music. Some people dance to cleanse themselves. So just do something that feels right to you. Then, pretty similar to what we talked about in the Imbolc episode, planting seeds again. And of course, it's still spring. You can still plant seeds for various crops if you have the place. Like my wife is actually growing tomatoes right now, and strawberries and beans and all sorts of stuff. And of course, the metaphorical idea of planting seeds is the right time for that now. So when do you want to accomplish something? Maybe a body transformation, like getting into shape, getting exercise in, or when you want a new job, or when you are studying right now. This is the time where to focus on this, planting this seed, making this wish. I want to succeed. I want to have this in my life. And start with the routines that are necessary to achieve those goals. And the last one is actually a bit of a folkloric idea that we do here. I don't know, it's just in Germany, but in Germany we do that. It's the water gathering to Ostara. So the morning of Ostara, like today or tomorrow, are actually holy. And in folklore, it's said that when you gather this holy water before the sunrise, it has healing powers. And I know it sounds super esoterical and freaky and tinfoil heady, but I've done this the last 5 years, and I don't know if it's my faith that makes the water strong or whatever, but it really helps. And I wouldn't suggest drinking this holy water for an entire year. Maybe for a few months when you have some internal problems, like with the digestion, or with when you're ill and want to drive out the sickness. It actually fastens up the process of healing. It's crazy. And even after these 2 or 3 months period, when I wouldn't suggest you to drink the water anymore, you can still use it externally. So when I have a cramp, or when I have a real bad muscle ache, I just water a piece of paper with it and just lay it on the muscle or the body part that's hurting really bad, and it instantly helps. One time, like 3 or 5 years ago, 2019, 5 years ago, I was working in an internship and I blew my back out completely. I don't know what is the word in English for it. in Germany it's called Hexenschuss, so the shot of a witch. It's when you get severe back pain from one moment to another. And it was so bad that I couldn't stand up. It was so bad. But I had some of this holy water, this Ostara water, in my trunk of my car. So I went there and gathered some toilet paper and actually watered it and put it on my back. And I kid you not, the next day I was able to stand up again, stand tall again, and the next day it was gone. And that was so significant for me that after this time I will always go out to get Ostara water, because you never know when to get it. It actually can help with let's call them mental issues. My brother a few years ago had a bit of a, let's call it spiritual abuse in a broader way, and it really took a toll on him. And drinking like this water for a few days, I gave him some of my water, really helped him to get back on the saddle, to refocus again. It was amazing to see. Right. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all for the rituals. And just to make a recap, what will I do? Of course, I will gather some water, but let me tell you about it. I will try to draw some holy water in the morning with my family from a well nearby here in the Odinswald. But it always depends on how the night before went, because there are no guarantees with a 2-year-old whirlwind in our home, my little daughter. And we will try to get up early and visit the well and gather the water. Another thing that is just great at modern, or it's just great with modern paganism, is to make something special, something magical for children, like for my child. So we will definitely take a hike into the nearest forest and hide some gifts for her there. So chasing the Easter bunny. And after that, we will thank the forest, leave some gifts there, and we will say grace, talk to the gods, and cleanse ourselves with incense. And on the weekend, we will have a big Easter brunch with my whole family. My whole family is pagan, so we will have the pagan celebration like tomorrow. And on the weekend, we will celebrate with the whole family, the normal Eastern. My family is very, very non-believing, so it's just eating with a bunch of people you like. And this is actually something important to understand. Just because you're pagan doesn't mean you have to lack in etiquette. So even when your family isn't supporting you with your faith or with the religion that you choose to celebrate, it doesn't mean that they're against you in person. It's just a bit strange for normal people sometimes, and don't take anything bad from that when they're not willing to celebrate that with you. Just be there for Christmas and for Easter or whatever you're celebrating, and everything will be fine. All right. And with that words, I'm ending this episode. I would be curious how you are celebrating this time of the year. Maybe you're inspired now to do something of your own or with your friends or family. So please let me know via the.blotcast@gmail.com or in the comments on YouTube or Instagram. I wish you all a wonderful time, a wonderful spring celebration, and I will talk to you very soon. And as always, know that you are loved. You are able to love because you are love.